Canada, which used to have the reputation as a welcoming, friendly country, is now one of the most hostile places to live in the developed world. Now, this isn't because of the people, of course, it's because of the prices.
My bill just keeps going up. It doesn't matter how much I try to cut back, it's constantly going up. And I just don't even know what to do about it.
They're ripping us off like they're ripping you off.
I feel like they're all in cahoots.
Over the past few decades, the cost of living...
They're starting to get it. They're starting to become more American and hating their government. Let's go. Let's go!
Living in Canada has gone through the roof, propelled by rising costs in housing, groceries, utilities, and pretty much everything else. Meanwhile, wages have stagnated since 2006. While
wow, does that sound familiar? Because it definitely should. If you're not picking up what I'm putting down, it's the same damn thing, bro.
Immigration
Whoa.
and it's led to a wide...
Hold on, what was that? What did I just say there?
By rising costs in housing, groceries, utilities...
Off like they're ripping you off.
I feel like they're all in cahoots.
Over the past few decades, the cost of living in Canada has gone through the roof, propelled by rising costs in housing, groceries, utilities, and pretty much everything else. Meanwhile, wages have stagnated since 2006.
Average? This is a Canada average. This is the average per hour. Holy fuck. Damn, damn. I was about to say, if you were making that here now, you'd still be poor. But like, if you're making that here, you'd still be poor. But damn, you have all that and you're still, damn. That's unfortunate.
Has only increased, and it's led to a wide range of debilitating social issues, like a staggering 20% rise in homelessness since 2018. It's a process that the government has largely let happen and even encouraged in some cases, as we'll find out later. But the reality on the ground is that living in Canada is a question of survival, and for most people, these problems have massive negative impacts on how they live their lives. It's clear from the stats that Canadians are suffering. In the Canadian Social Survey of 2024, nearly half of the respondents said that their budgets couldn't keep up with the rising costs. Canadian household debt is another indicator of how bad it's gotten. Per citizen, it's the highest in the G7. But what really paints the picture is how Canada's Prime Minister...
This guy, Justin Trudeau, I remember back a day when he got like first elected, because he's like a prime minister or some shit, right? Apparently people were like super okay with him because of his progressive policies. And it's funny because a lot of the political pundits on whatever side he's not on back in the day were like, yeah, he's not right for this. And well, yeah, now we're here.
Minister chose to speak to his country and the response he's gotten from his fellow Canadians. Strangely, Trudeau decided that emulating bad YouTube apology videos was the best for his message on immigration.
No.
The response was, as you
would we should have bust out the ukulele, oh no!
Expect, absolutely terrible, with around 68,000 dislikes to 22,000 likes at the time of this video. In the 7-minute long overpolished video, Trudeau covers the general basics that you'd associate with terrible apology videos. He begins by saying he'll admit his mistakes, even though he doesn't really throughout the video. Then he immediately shifts the blame to bad actors despite the fact that he implemented the policies which let it all happen.
Increasingly, bad actors like fake colleges and big chain corporations have been exploiting our immigration system for their own interests. So we're doing something major. We're reducing the numbers of immigrants that will come to Canada for the next 3 years.
Damn, that's fucking crazy. That's fucking crazy to hear that from Canada. Like when you think about it, everyone knows that America, we like immigrants to a degree. We just want them to come here legally, and everyone's like, yeah, get here legally, you're pretty chill. If you're not, get the fuck out. Fair enough. But to hear it from Canada. Because, like, the general consensus for people from America that know nothing about Canada, myself, it is 100%, yeah, dude, if you want to go there, just go there. But also, what I find funny, the funniest part of all of this, bro, people are leaving America to go to Canada because they assume Canada is better. And I keep seeing more and more of these, why is Canada collapsing? Oh no, you can't escape this shit anywhere.
Biggest fault with his press release, though, lies in the short section where he diagnoses Canada with a labour shortage. While Trudeau himself doesn't go into much detail about why this is apparently the root cause of Canada's problems, the video does use part of an interview with Dennis Darby, a representative for Canadian industry. He says while talking about Canada's industry that, quote, "We've had a chronic shortage of labour over the past decade. It's the #1 issue."
So we think there needs to be more, and you need to continue to push that, the pedal to the floor to bring more people into Canada.
This moment has become a focal point in the overwhelming negative response to the video. And of course,
I'm gonna make a guess, a hypothesis here, if you will. If you bring in too many fucking people and then there's no place to house them, everything else goes to shit. Are we feeling that? Are we feeling? I feel like that's pretty. I feel like that's how it goes, because it's kind of like that here. So.
Lots of the top comments are just people that are astounded by how tone deaf the video is. One of them writes, "This is like someone who sets fire to everyone's house in the street, then sits them down for a serious conversation on fire safety." Another lays blame squarely on Trudeau's shoulders, saying, "People are mad because people born and raised in Canada can't afford to live. You've been talking about housing your entire time in office, and yet the problem has only gotten worse." But the video's insinuation that Canada's problems lie with the labour shortage has been particularly highlighted, with lots of comments denying that it's even true, let alone relevant. It's because it shows just how out of touch Trudeau and the establishment have become to regular Canadians' problems. To back up the point, they took interview quotes with CEOs and senior executives on the biggest problems that they're facing instead. All the while, Trudeau is acting like evil corporations are the real problem, while ignoring the fact that he's the one in charge of regulating them. The reality on the ground though is that there are plenty of jobs in Canada, but wages have stagnated, so they just don't pay enough to give people good lives, or even
Dude, I'm telling you. Every time he says Canada, just put America, and it's the exact same fucking thing, bro. Also, that reminds me, when I was doing OTR trucking, you see a lot of this on the coasts and around major cities. Particularly the one that I thought was the most appalling was fucking Portland, Oregon. Surprise to fucking prize, bro. I'm driving on a highway through Oregon, right? Through Portland. And there are motherfuckers set up just like this, but significantly more numerous on the highway. They're on the side. The people are living on the side of the highway. So, surprise, surprise, I suppose.
Keep them out of poverty. The unrelenting cost of living crisis in Canada has been disastrous for the country and its people. No cost is more impactful or substantial than housing, and it means that rising housing costs have been the biggest factor in the entire crisis. So there's no better way to see how bad things have gotten than by looking at Canada's largest city of Toronto and its terrible housing crisis. Before we continue, I want to tell you about our video sponsor. You see, if you're still carrying around a clunky, outdated wallet, it's really time to upgrade with Extra. Known for inventing the first trackable wallet, Extra is on a mission to upgrade all your carry essentials with smart, sustainable designs. Their wallets are super slim, half the size of a conventional wallet, but they still hold over 12 cards in cash. With Extra's signature trigger mechanism, accessing your cards is as easy as the push of a button. They also feature built-in...
Not gonna lie, that kind of looks nice. It looks better than the wallet I got. I might actually cop one of these, no lie.
RFID blocking, which keeps all of your data safe on your cards from wireless skimming and theft. And on top of that, Extra also uses environmentally friendly materials like vegan Italian leather and space-grade aluminum, making their products both stylish and sustainable. Plus, the solar-powered tracker lets you track your wallet's location directly from your phone. With just 2 hours of sunlight, you will get 3 months of charge, and you can even use the two-way ringing feature or receive separation alerts so that you never lose your wallet again. If you're looking for even more versatility, Extra offers a range of add-ons, including coin trays, AirTag compatible backplates, tool cards, and so much more. Their bundles, like the Key Case Plus aluminium card holder or the Parliament Wallet and Tracker card, they will provide you everything you need to stay organized and connected. And right now, Extra is offering up to 55% off using the code MOON if you head to extra.com/moon, and make sure to use the code MOON. Like other countries close to the Arctic Circle, Canada has quite a low population compared to its massive tracts of land. But even with that relatively low population, a large chunk of those people live in a small collection of large cities, over 73% as of 2021. Canada's population...
We're gonna get back to that in a second. Holy fucking shit, bro. I just looked at the wallets. The cheapest one I've seen is like $62. God damn. Nigga, I'm poor. You think I'm buying a $62 whatever, dude? Whatever.
And economy is therefore focused on these large cities. Toronto is the crown jewel, with a population between 6 to 8 million people depending on how you define the city. It's the centre of Canada's financial sector, and during their time in power, Trudeau's coalition government have taken advantage of this imbalance to push forward an agenda focused on benefiting the wealthy minority in control of those cities. And it's come at a massive cost to Canada's rural population, but it's also done terrible damage to Canada's urban people as well. A lot of this is because of Canada's descent into a process called financialization. financialization. As described by Canada's Centre for Housing Rights, financialization is when housing transforms from something necessary for survival into a speculative financial asset. Regardless of where you live.
So yeah, this is just going on everywhere in every developed country, is what I'm hearing. Here's like that. Apparently the UK is like this, and America's like this. So, like, but what is the solution? That's the real question. What are we thinking the solution is, other than, well, I don't want to be like, we could just get rid of them forcefully. But all I am saying is every once in a while, the French were really good at doing, revolutions for whatever reason. Maybe not fighting against other people, but revolutions, it's kind of like their speciality.
You'll probably have seen this happen. Over the past 50 years, buying a home has gone from an achievable goal on an average salary to something that only the richest can afford. Meanwhile, investors who got involved in the housing market have seen their assets skyrocket in value. But while all of this is true, it fails to see the larger point. Financialization isn't just housing becoming a financial asset, it's the transformation of a whole society to increase the value of financial assets. Nowhere is this worse than Toronto, a city where financialization has been the cause of more than a 40% increase in home prices over the last 5 years alone. But as we'll soon find out, it's also damaged a lot more than just Toronto's housing market. The true cost of Canada's financialization is laid out in the book Critical Dialogues of Urban Governance, Development and Activism. While it's got a wordy title, the actual content is more straightforward than you'd expect. It's basically a collection of essays with some of them describing just how badly financialization has messed up both London and Toronto. Of course, we'll be focusing more on Toronto. As chapter 14 describes, financialization has lots of different causes, but one of the main ones is the relatively recent globalization of finance. Even 50 years ago, your options as an investor were mostly limited to your own country. You could invest in foreign companies pretty easily, but other foreign assets were much harder to get into. But that's all changed, and now if you want to put your money into foreign housing markets like Toronto's, you easily can. Banks have even created ways of storing the assets, which let you buy a share in a fraction of lots of other houses, rather than just one building or home. It was this process that led to the financial crash of 2008, but it's also changed the very fabric of cities as well. This is what's...
So this happened again? Will like a whole nother recession happen again? Because then again, I don't know what happened in Canada, but I know what happened here, especially in 2008. I should have been buying a house instead of being in fucking elementary school. Wait, no. It was middle school. Either way. Like that, damn. Like what is... It seems like, from what I've noticed, everyone knows the problem. Well, not everyone, but most people know the problem, right? But there's nothing they can do about it. Because it's all of these institutions that have all this power. So what do we do here, I suppose, is the real thing.
Toronto and Canadian cities as a whole different from other Western megacities. When the financial markets exploded over the past 50 years and their economic influence increased, Canada was ahead of the curve. Nearly all Western cities' economies have changed their focus from manufacturing to finance and technology. And this changed the cities themselves, as Chapter 9 describes. This has led to rapid gentrification of the inner city, deconversion of many older housing units from rental tenure to owner occupation, and a slow shift of the immigration reception neighborhoods into the suburbs. In English, this means as the city centre becomes the place where all the wealth was created and concentrated, the focus of the city naturally shifted as well. Neighbourhoods closer to the city got more expensive, and the old residents got pushed out by investors buying up the homes. These old middle or lower class homes were then either sold to richer people to live in, or even converted into much more expensive luxury housing. And as the process continued over decades, its effects reached every part of the city. Any neighbourhood with good transport links to the centre got much more expensive, until housing prices in the whole city went sky high. Working people then only got pushed further and further out. Toronto, as the financial hub of Canada, saw the worst of this, although similar things have also happened to the rest of Canada's largest cities, as shown in this graph of Canadian housing prices. So far, all of these things we've talked about are pretty universal across developed economies. So what's made it so bad in Canada specifically? Well, the book we've been discussing so far analyzes all of this in greater detail. There's a few different reasons for why Canadians have been hit especially hard. First, Canada's welcoming of foreign investment into the housing market has been disastrous. For example, a report on Vancouver and Victoria's housing markets showed that over 6 billion Canadian dollars have been laundered and invested.
Oh my god. Wow. Actually, I don't even know why I'm saying wow. Surprise, surprise. That's actually insane. Wow, who would have thought the rich people that can afford to do shit like this are doing shit like this? Wow. Never would have guessed.
by multinational criminal organizations, and that figure will most likely pale in comparison to the so-called legitimate foreign investment as well. It was only a few years ago in 2018 that Toronto started taxing foreign housing market investment above domestic investors. But the problem is also with the policy and the central government. Canada went above and beyond other Western economies in catering to speculative investment in the housing market. Chapter 9 of the book explains how this happened in a few short steps. First, the Canadian government made sure that investors could get credit from the government pretty much risk-free with virtually no interest. The advertised reason for this move was to stimulate the economy with more private investment, but it didn't quite work out that way. Instead, the massive amounts of free credit and easy borrowed money created a gold rush for investors.
I was about to say, has this worked anywhere? Has this worked anywhere? Whenever I hear that we're going to revitalize the economy by giving people money to invest, and it's not the average person, it's always just, rich people, I don't think I've ever seen it work. Or it always leads to some shit like this. So, alright. Surprise, surprise.
They started bidding wars for homes, massively increasing the prices. A lot of this investment was focused on rental properties, either so that the rent could then be increased or just to turn them into second homes. And this brings us right back to reality, and the outstandingly poor rental market in Canada. Let's go over what we've just been talking about. Gentrification and the transformation of cities decreased the supply of rental properties. Foreign investment decreased the supply of rental properties. And finally, the Canadian government's decision to create a housing market feeding frenzy made things even worse. There have been plenty of other factors that we don't really have time to explore here, like Canada's welcoming of short-term lets. The Airbnb market in Canadian cities is absolutely massive, and each one is a home that could have gone to someone who actually lives there. But
I forgot about Airbnb. I don't know how it works there, but I know from what people have been saying here that Airbnb is actually garbage. And I also heard that there was some sort of what were they trying to do, like a boycott or some shit of using Airbnbs, but I guess it worked. It either worked or it doesn't work, because it's not nearly as talked about as it used to be. But I mean, that's a whole other video.
Results are the same. Regular people have been pushed out of their homes, and barely anyone can afford to live in these cities anymore. Now to even survive in Toronto, you need to make at least $60,000 a year. Honestly, it's more like $80,000 if you actually want to own any possessions. In the other large cities, it's a little bit better, but that really isn't saying much. So why did they let all of this happen? We can give a pretty simple answer based on basic speculation. It's simply the fact that all of this has made a few powerful people filthy rich. The people who control policy are also the people who own lots of assets and benefit from skyrocketing house prices. They don't care what happens to regular people, they'll push...
Like this, it's not even that it's aggravating, it's just like, as soon as you hear something like this, at least everyone who's kind of in the know, kind of, like, their ears perk up, and it's just like, yeah, surprise, surprise. Who would have thought if, you pretty much tell people that, yeah, you can invest in this country for absolutely nothing, that they're going to make everything worse for everyone else? Who would have thought? Who would have thought? Did you pick up on that? Because I picked up on that. Maybe that's just an American in me, or the classic cynicism I have towards big business. But surprise, surprise, everyone is being pushed out of where they, used to live. Ugh.
The prices as high as they can as long as people still show up to work every day. It's in this way that high housing prices are a symptom of how unequal the economy has become. But high housing prices, and particularly high rental prices, also creates lots of problems for society by themselves. First, there's the direct cost to companies. Commercial rents have shot up along with residential rents, forcing many businesses to close under the pressure. It's a massive factor on its own, but the problem goes deeper than that. Overall, 33% of Canadians rent, but it's much higher in the cities. In Toronto, it's 48%. Quebec City is at 49%. Vancouver's at around 55%, and in Montreal, over 60% of the residents are renting. As the rents in all of those cities have skyrocketed in recent years, wages have also stagnated. In fact, they've even gone backwards compared to inflation and the cost of living. You can tell by looking at a stat called real GDP per capita, and it measures how much the average citizen of a country earns adjusted to inflation. So looking at it will tell you how much real buying power the average person really has. This is a graph comparing Canada's real GDP per capita to the U.S.A.'s.
And that's a Q1 of this year. Shit, I thought we had... Damn, I thought we had it bad. Apparently they have it worse. But I like how the trend is essentially slightly even. Every once in a while kind of flip-flopping. And then obviously it dips, but then it comes back. And then as you can see from here, it just here, that dip, and then it goes back up again. So at least they're kind of on a downturn, just a little bit. I mean, I would prefer this one to be on a downturn, but I mean, again, I'm slightly biased. But damn, I didn't realize it was that bad.
And it's not pretty. It's not like people in the US are having a great time, but in Canada
exactly.
It's been getting even worse in the past few years.
Which is crazy.
Now we're at a point where the wage problem has gotten so bad that across the board, Canadians have lower salaries than people from the US. It doesn't matter which state or province you compare. The housing crisis has also played a large role in this. People who are forced to spend over 50% of their paycheck towards rent don't have much disposable income.
By the way, from my understanding, what I heard, you should only be spending like 20% of what you make of your actual income on housing. So 50% is fucking insane.
When all you can focus on is surviving, there's not much time for thriving. And this has a knock-on effect on the rest of the economy in a way that's hard to measure on paper. But the results are clear in practice. The nightlife industry has been hit particularly hard. Its recent struggles are symptomatic of the wider problem. A report by a research firm called IBIS World showed that over the last 5 years, Canada's nightlife industry contracted by over 4%. The shutdown caused lots of damage, but nightclubs and bars fail to recover afterwards because people just don't have enough money to justify going out very often, if at all. And this is creating a deadly spiral. Rents go up and nightclubs have to charge even more to stay open. And this makes them less attractive to people already paying massive rent bills every month. And so they get less customers. Less customers then means they have to charge even more, and it goes on and on until they have to close. This industry has been hit particularly hard because of their unusual clientele. Young people are the most likely to go out, but they're also more likely to be renting and have less income than older people. But we've still seen the same effects across the whole of the Canadian economy. Less disposable income means less consumer spending. Businesses jack up their prices to compensate, and the same deadly spiral comes into effect. Of course, lots of corporations also use the crisis to hike up prices even further, while lining their executives and their shareholders' pockets. And the end result...
So like, I get that. I feel like everyone gets that, but also at the same time, what is the solution to this? Because it seems like everyone understands. But it's always like, yeah, so this is the problem, and then there's like never a solution. And then politicians will be like, yeah, this is the solution, and then they'll be in there for however long you can be a prime minister for, and then nothing changes. Or, in fact, it just gets worse. So, alright, I mean, whatever, dude.
The result of all of this is that it just makes life worse. You have to think about it all the time, like making sure you only buy the cheapest versions of food, or even limiting your diet entirely based on what's cheaper. For the people who've been hit the hardest, it becomes a question of which bill you can afford to not pay. Often food is one of the first things you have to give up. Then there's the non-essentials. Things you could only afford as rare luxuries like holidays or meals out at restaurants are now completely off the table. This brings us right back round to Trudeau's YouTube apology about immigration and his assertion that Canada's problem is a labour shortage. This comes as an insult to people who are working as hard as they can but just aren't getting a fair deal from their country for it. Working long hours just to scrape by is easily comparable to the effects that long-term unemployment has on people. You get the same worries with it, like the stress of not knowing whether you'll make it through the next month or how far into the future you can go on for. But at the same time, you still have to work long hours every day. Wages have stagnated for years, prices are still rising, and a third of Canadian renters can't afford their rent. And it's no wonder then that so many people are slipping through the cracks when they're being squeezed this hard. Canada is now on track to have over 500,000 homeless people by 2030. The streets and the shelters are overflowing, and tent cities have become a common sight in most large Canadian cities.
Hate to say it, but I glad it's not us. I mean, granted, it is us also, but the fact that it's happening to someone else, it's like, we could take solace in that you're kind of being screwed too. So I feel also like Canadians will also agree with this sentiment. You love Canada, you hate the Canadian government, right? I feel like that's how that works. Because I love America, I just hate the fucking government because they run it terribly, and it leads to shit like this. So I don't know how Parliament, I think that's what y'all call it. I don't know how Parliament is, but goddamn, if they're doing the exact same thing, it's like, bro, what are we supposed to do?
And this is particularly awful in Canada, where temperatures drop well below freezing for months at a time. Homelessness and poverty breeds crime and drug use. It might not be long before Canada loses its reputation for beauty and friendliness precisely.
Now that I'm thinking about it, I wonder where Skid Row in Canada would be.
because its government has been so harsh to its people. Immigration is wrapped up in this as well, and it's another reason the situation in Canada specifically has become so dire. Trudeau and the wider establishment have been happy to facilitate mass migration into Canada for years because it suits their interests. More immigrants means more working people to fill jobs and a more productive economy. At least that's how the theory went, but it fails to consider all the negative effects that immigration has had. Nearly everyone who moves to a country either temporarily or permanently is looking for work, but they also need a place to stay, and this only adds fuel to the housing crisis fire. More demand means higher prices, and recent migrants are much more likely to be renting a place than buying it, meaning migration has an outsized effect on the rental market in particular. Crumbling under an overwhelming wave of public opinion, Trudeau has finally announced that Canada will be limiting immigration more for the next few years at least.
We're reducing the numbers of immigrants that will come to Canada for the next 3 years.
For lots of people though, it's a little bit too late. We can be sure that the move definitely has nothing to do with his upcoming re-election campaign and his historically low approval ratings. For a lot of Canadians at this point, any kind of change at the top would be a welcome relief from nearly a decade of the same government. But these long-term problems aren't going to reverse themselves anytime soon, and it could...
It's crazy because it's now hot topic. This is essentially one of the reasons why Trump won here. People wanted to change. The government was garbage, and the government is making people, the average working everyday people, feel like shit. Surprise, surprise.
It'll be a long time before Canada can get back on its feet once again.